Okay, good Shabbos. Right, so in last week's parashah, as we ended off the book of Exodus, we finished off by completing the building of the Mishkan. And Hashem came down in this cloud and he filled the tabernacle. And we all stood outside wondering how on earth are we going to get inside. So for the first time in history, ever since the Garden of Eden, we had God as a neighbor. You could go, he entered the neighborhood and you can go visit him. Now, what do you do when you get a new neighbor in the neighborhood? You take them some food, right? Milk tart. Hashem doesn't like milk tart. Hashem tells us in this week's parashat Vayikra, exactly what he wants us to bring. And he gives us 5 different categories of offerings that we can bring to him when we come to him in the temple. And we learn from this that Hashem himself very much loves a bring and brai. Okay. So he invites us there and he tells us these are the 5 categories. And there's obviously the subcategories beneath them as well. So you got the burnt offering, right? The offering you give to Hashem gets completely burnt up. You don't get nothing. No one gets anything. It all goes to Hashem. And depending on your income, you can choose how much you want to give. You can either give a bull, how much does a bull cost nowadays? Anyone know?
How old?
I don't know. You tell me.
250 kilograms, 8,700.
$8,000. So giving a burnt offering to Hashem, the closest we're going to get to that today is if you were to go to the bank and draw that $8,000, put some lighter fluid on it, and burn it right there. Just gone. That is a burnt offering. You give everything to Hashem just like that once off. Gone. Never to be seen again. Right, so that's the one category. Then comes the grain offering, the mincha offering that we give. And obviously we represent this with our afternoon prayers called the mincha prayers as well. So that's the grain offering. Then you can give a peace offering, the shilamim offerings. These are the offerings that you're allowed to eat with Hashem. You get most of the food yourself. And you come and you do it as a celebration with Hashem. Then you get what's called, some people translate it as the sin offering. But it's actually quite a bad translation calling it a sin offering. So we call it a sin offering because at certain instances, if you do commit a sin, then you're required to bring this offering. But the thing is that there's certain times you have to bring this offering when it has got nothing to do with a sin at all. For example, giving birth. Some of our rabbis say it's because of all the swear words you said while you were giving birth that you now have to bring the sin offering. But technically speaking, there was no sin involved in giving birth. The same with finishing your vows. If you make a vow unto Hashem and you complete the term of your vow, you have to bring one of these offerings. So a better definition or a better translation or name for it is not sin offering, but a purification offering. The chatat offering is a purification offering because you see that word chatat being used talking about purification in the Torah. For example, we're commanded that you shall purify the altar. It says you shall chatat the altar. Doesn't mean you shall sin the altar. It means you shall purify the altar. But the word chait is like the root word of therefore sin. That's why we get confused. But purification is a better translation. And then lastly, you've got the guilt offering. In Hebrew, we call it the asham. In Afrikaans, we say achshaim. It's the same thing, the guilt offering that you bring in case you think you did something wrong, but you're not 100% sure, or maybe you forgot, maybe you ate something on Pesach you thought wasn't allowed to be eaten, etc., etc. You've got a guilt offering as well. So these are the 5 that Hashem wants. Now, studying these offerings and the functioning in the tabernacle is actually quite timely for us as we prepare for the upcoming festival of Pesach, because there's a few Pesach things involved in these offerings. For example, chometz. We have all declared war on chometz now, right? It's in the final week. We're going to battle now against chometz. Chometz must fall. And the parashah tells us that chometz was not accepted on Hashem's altar. Not one of these offerings we have to add your grain offering with it. Chometz was not allowed at all. In fact, the only time chometz ever enters into the Mishkan or the tabernacle is on Shavuot, when we have those 2 big loaves that represent the 2 tablets. But even those loaves are not offered on the altar. Chometz is not allowed to touch the altar. So the tabernacle and the temple, the altar is always kosher for Pesach. We didn't have to keep one in the back cupboard for every year when Pesach comes around and take it out like we do with our dishes. The altar is always kosher for Pesach. And of course, if you're studying the parashah this week, you'll realize which one of the categories the Pesach offering falls into. Pesach offering is, of course, a peace offering. The peace offering. We'll discuss that a little bit later this afternoon when we study our Seder preparation. All right. So, as we know, the reason why God gave us this whole sacrificial system is in order for us to draw near, right? We've all heard the explanation of the reason. Well, what is a sacrifice called in Hebrew? A korban. It comes from the root word karav, which means to draw near, right? Komiso. Hashem is telling us, here's 5 ways you can komiso and come visit me, right? So that's what a korban is. Hashem gave it so that we can draw near, because there's a problem. If we try to walk into Hashem's holy presence just as we are, right? Come as you are, we're going to get burnt to a crisp. We're going to spontaneously combust. So what Hashem does is He gives us this way of doing it. He tells us, I want you to take for yourself an animal. You're going to take this animal and you're going to lean on the animal. Right? We call it smicha, leaning on the animal. And symbolically speaking, what's happening is it's almost as if we're investing that animal with our soul or our personality or our name and our authority. And then that animal gets slaughtered and the blood, because the life is in the blood, that blood gets taken into the tabernacle and sprinkled onto the curtain or onto the different parts of the altar, depending on which offering it is. So that's how we are supposed to draw near to Hashem. He gave us this system so that we could draw near to Him as ourselves, so to speak, by using this intermediary of the animal sacrificial system. Meaning that if we look at the laws of these animals and these sacrifices, we should actually be learning lessons about how we should be presenting ourselves before Hashem as a holy, living, acceptable offering on His altar. That's the whole point. He wants us to draw near, not so much the animal. Right? The burnt offering, He doesn't eat any of it. It completely burns it up. It's not about the animals. It's about us. Hashem wants us to draw near. So we have to learn from these animals how we are supposed to approach Hashem. And one thing we always have to keep in mind when we're studying the offerings and the sacrifices is that majority of these offerings are gifts unto Hashem. When we read about these things, we think, okay, well, these people sinned and now they have to bring all these offerings. Can you imagine how many sins there were in the nation? Majority of these offerings are gifts unto Hashem. They have nothing to do with sin at all. Right? The burnt offering, for example, if you want to show gratitude to Hashem, you would go and give Him an Olah offering and burn that $8,000 right there on the spot. It's very expensive, eh? If you want to say thanksgiving to Hashem for whatever reason, you would come and bring the thanksgiving offering and you'd have a meal with Him. You'd come and sit with Him across the table, so to speak, and have a meal with Hashem and celebrate with the thanksgiving offering. Now, the thanksgiving offering, today, of course, we don't have the temple. One of the ways that we commemorate this today is in our siddur. It should probably be on the page we're on right now, I think, maybe. We've got the blessing called the Birkat HaGomel for someone who survives a situation of danger. You have to come and say that blessing. There are at least 3, maybe 4 times in your lifetime where you have to come and recite this specific blessing. It's for surviving a situation of danger or traveling across an ocean, which is very dangerous. It was back in the day. There was a lot of shipwrecks back then. Mind you, it is still today. We're still looking for that airplane that's missing. Okay? So if you survive a situation of danger or traveling over the ocean, if you survive a life-threatening illness, you come and say this blessing. Or thirdly, when you get released from prison, you come and say this blessing as well. In temple times, you would actually bring an offering to the temple with these thanksgiving offerings, right? That's what Psalm 100 is actually written for, so you can recite it along with these offerings. I went to prison this week, again. I went to Baviansport prison on Thursday to go visit. We've got 6 Messianic believers there in the prison, so I went there to go give them some gifts. Since we're talking about giving gifts, gave them some matzah because the prison's not going to give them matzah. So I took them some matzah and some reading material. They've got Torah club, they've got Hayasod, they've got enough to keep them busy for the entire year. And I was thinking to myself, you know what, when these guys eventually come out of prison, if the temple was standing, they would have to go somehow, get money together, and go and give an offering in the temple to Hashem as a thanksgiving offering for bringing you out of prison. And I think about all of our apostles. How many times weren't our apostles locked up in prisons as well? Right? Incorrectly. But they would have, every single time that they come out of prison, they would have to go to the temple and would have to give a thanksgiving offering. Maybe that's why Paul took that vow when he was on the journey on his way back. I think it was his second missionary journey. He took that vow and he had to go complete his vow in the tabernacle, in the temple. Maybe it's because he wanted to say thank you for being released from the prison that he was on in Cyprus, at least during that second journey. Very interesting. Anyway, so we bring these gifts to Hashem and say to God, God, I love you. I want to share some time with you. Here is a gift. I want to give a gift to you. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I enjoy receiving gifts. I really do. But as I get older, I want less and less gifts. In fact, I tell my family whenever it's like Father's Day or my birthday, I tell them, you know what, do me a favor and don't buy me anything. A greater gift is just to save money. Right? I don't know if you guys have the same issue as me. So as I get older, I don't want gifts. And it's very interesting because if you're giving a gift to someone just because it's Father's Day, or just because it's their birthday, or just because it's Valentine's Day, and you're bullying your husband into buying you something, right? It becomes an obligation. And a gift that's via obligation, it's nice and all, but it's not as nice as just receiving a gift for the sake of receiving one. Why give me a gift just because the earth went around the sun for another 365 days and I've turned 1 year older? What's the point of that, right? Rather just save your money, let's go out for dinner sometime or something like that, right? So gifts, the way that we give them, I think Hashem maybe sees it the same way. If we're only doing it out of obligation, is it really a sweet aroma unto God? Is it really a reach nechoach, as the Torah portion tells us? Now, of course, there's an element in that is sweet unto Hashem, and that is the element of our obedience. He said so, so we do it. That's how you show your love for Hashem. I mean, once I've got kids now I realize when they actually do what I tell them, that's true love. Right? Happens once in a blue moon. Right. So with Hashem, yes, we have to show obedience and we have to bring these offerings when He requires it of us, but there's more to it. There's something extra we can do when we give our gifts to Hashem. And we learn a detail about that in this week's parasha. Right in the beginning, Leviticus chapter 1 verse 9, while it's talking about the different types of burnt offerings you can give, He gives us the instruction of how to treat that offering before you bring it to the altar. He gives us two instructions. Hashem tells us, you shall wash the legs of the animal, and you shall wash the innards of your offering. Our sages ask the question, why does it specifically point out these two things, your legs and your innards? Because what do your legs represent? It's how you walk. It's halacha, right? Lach, how you walk. How you walk out this life of faith. The physical things you do in this world, they matter to Hashem. We need to do that correctly and we need to wash it. We need to do that in a state of purity. But also, we need to wash the innards, the inside. It's not just about what we do on the outside. Hey, look at me doing a mitzvah today. Hey, look at me wearing tefillin today. Hey, look, I decided to finally eat kosher for once in my life. Right? It doesn't matter what so much as only doing the outside. You also have to wash the innards as well. Meaning our internal thoughts, our drives, our minds, and our heart needs to be cleansed as well. We have to cleanse both the inside and the outside. The Talmud tells us in Tractate Yoma 72b that you can't be called a Talmud Chacham. You can't be called a Torah scholar unless your tocho is kavoro. What does that mean?
Backside is
Close. not tuchas. Tocho is the word for your insides, and kavoro is your outsides, your external. The Talmud tells us you can't be called a Torah scholar or a Talmid Chacham unless your inside matches your outside. They both have to be exactly the same. A teaching which, of course, we are very familiar with. Why? Because Yeshua taught us this concept in a very famous saying. Yeshua taught us, and by the way, when He taught us this, it was very appropriately linked to what we're busy doing now in this time of the year. Because what are we all doing this coming week? We're kashering and cleaning our houses, cleaning our pots on the inside and the outside. This is what Yeshua says in Matthew 23, all the woes, which some people think makes Yeshua a hippie because he was like, whoa. But anyway, so Matthew 23 verse 25. Yeshua says, woe to you, hypocritical Torah teachers and Pharisees. What did the Talmud say? You can't call yourself a Torah teacher unless you are tocho kavaro, clean on the inside and on the outside. Yeshua says, woe to you, hypocritical Torah teachers and Pharisees. You clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside they are full of robbery and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisees, first clean the inside of the cup so that the outside may be clean as well. Yeshua is giving us advice on how to kasher our kitchen for Pesach here. First clean the inside and then clean the outside as well. So those of you that were here last week in the afternoon when we studied kashering, how would you kasher a steel cup or a steel bowl? Fire. How many of us have got flamethrowers in the backyard? Maybe you. Boiling, right? We call it libum. So boiling. Agala, sorry, it's called agala. So what you would do is you would take a massive pot. In fact, I did this week with my mom's kitchen because she already made all the matzah balls for our Pesach Seder here at Shul. We're going to be about 60 people for our Seder. My word. Anyway, so I went there to our house and I kashered the entire kitchen and everything, boiled all the countertops and stuff. And I took the biggest pot she had and I laid out all of the utensils she's going to use for Pesach. And there I stood one by one, dipping them in boiling water. Constantly boiling. It has to be a rolling boil. So you've got to do it one by one so the boil doesn't stop, right? So there I am taking one by one these things and dunking them, leaving them, taking them out and passing it onto a clean surface over there. If someone walks in and sees me doing this, I have no idea what they're going to think. Someone doesn't know what we're doing. Baptizing our cutlery. Right? How do you make cutlery holy? You boil the hell out of it. Yeah. Cutlery for Christ. It's a new thing we're starting. Anyway, so there I was boiling all these things. That's how you're supposed to boil these things, right? But now let's talk about what Yeshua says here. You take a cup or a bowl. If you were to take a cup or a bowl, right? Let's put it like this. And you turn it around and you dunk it in the water straight down. Is it kashed? No. Remember all the times when you were a kid playing in the bath? My kids still do this till today. They take the cups, turn it upside down. What happens? An air bubble gets stuck inside. So the boiling water does not touch the inside of the cup. So Yeshua tells us, first clean the inside, then clean the outside as well. Did you know Yeshua has got advice for how to kasher your kitchen? If it's not kashered on the inside. So what happens then is that the cup, if you do it the wrong way, it appears as if it was kashered. It's still wet on the outside. The outside is washed, but the inside is full of filth and maggots, so to speak. It's not kosher for Pesach. It's an empty immersion, just like it can be for us when we get immersed as well. The same thing happens with us. When we present ourselves to Hashem as a living sacrifice, we shouldn't only look kosher on the outside. Sure, the offerings did need to be cleaned outside, the legs needed to be washed, but the parasha tells us to also wash the innards of our sacrifices. And what does Yeshua call it when we do this? When we hide the inside and only clean the outside? He calls it hypocrisy, but he specifically puts us into the mood of Pesach, and he says, this is called the leaven of hypocrisy. The chametz of hypocrisy. He literally calls that chametz. And chametz, as we learn from the parasha, is not accepted on God's altar. So we come there and we say to Hashem, hey, look at me. I chased out demons in your name. I did this in your name. And he will say to us, I do not know you because you didn't clean the inside of the cup, you lawless individual. So this week, as we're all going to go home and scrubbing and boiling and flame throwing our pots and pans to get rid of any trace of chametz on the surface of our pots and pans, keep in mind as you do that, as you're doing the cleaning of the outside, that we should also be an acceptable offering unto Hashem on the inside. We should be washed, cleaned, cleansed, and kashered on the inside as well. So search the very darkest recesses of your heart and your mind and your emotions and your attitudes and try and find any chometz and boil the living hell out of it. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.